Aha!
Right.
We are working. Amazing.
Here we go. Oh,
Yes.
sweet. Right, let's roll.
Right. I'm gonna ask you a lot of questions.
Yep.
If you don't want to answer them, that's fine. All I ask is that when you do answer them, you answer them honestly.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Always.
Okay. So I want to start with your current age.
I'm 28.
You're 28. When
Yeah.
did you start using steroids?
I did my first course when I was 16. I stayed on for 6 months and then came off for 2 years. And from the age of 18, I've been on for 10 years since.
Your thirst. What motivated you to go on at 16?
I was very, very skinny, bit of a geek, really. Got bullied quite a lot, had kind of a shit life, really. And I thought if I took the easy route and took steroids and put on size quickly.
So they were
uh,
your main turn to steroids initially wasn't competitive or anything to do with that. It was purely about confidence and size and that sort of thing.
It was purely for appearance. I wanted to look bigger. At the time, I didn't even know what powerlifting was. I didn't compete or anything, and I just simply wanted to get bigger and get attention from girls, and get noticed.
And how successful was that first cycle?
I went from in about 8 months. I went from 11 stone to 15 stone in 8 months,
And was
and I
it
went getting absolutely no attention from girls to being noticed. Had my first relationship. The bullying stopped, and I associate the pattern with taking steroids leads to a good life.
and would you say that? I mean, was it side effect free? What was that first cycle? What did you take?
I took D-bol, 50 milligrams a day, and I stayed at 50 milligrams until I ran out of money.
So did you take D-bol for the whole 8 months?
Yes, 8 months of D-bol, yeah.
And that's the only thing you took? No injectables, nothing else?
No, no injectables, just D-bol without a break.
Any noticeable side effects? Any issues? Any
I
problems?
don't know, bitch tits. That's it. Just
Got
quite
gyno.
bad gyno. Yeah, bad gyno, and got to the point where I take my shirt off and like only if it was cold and people couldn't see I've got gyno.
Right, and your physique, would you say you were a bodybuilding physique, powerlifting physique, strongman physique at that
Um,
time? What was condition
what
like?
I remember, I was probably when I hit 15 stone, I was probably 15% body fat. I'm 5'9", so
So you
I
were you
was
were you were carrying some meat and quite lean, and you weren't.
I was in good shape. I was in good shape as a kid, very very good shape very quickly. I realised I had decent genetics and I could put muscle on very easily, and I was strong as well.
So what
Um,
happened? Go on.
I had 180 kilogram squat at age 16. I benched 120 kilograms, and I deadlifted 220 kilograms. That was
Okay.
on my first course.
Now you came off. Did you PCT?
Yeah. No, I ran out of money and couldn't afford it. So I came off. I stayed the same weight, but I got fat.
Now, when you came off, was the only motivation for coming off the fact that you'd run out of money and you could no longer buy the drugs?
If I had the money there, I would have stayed on and I wouldn't have come off.
Did you consider any illicit way of gaining finances in order to buy the drugs?
At that time, I was too scared to. I was still young and scared of doing anything wrong, really.
Did you go through a period of time though where you were almost desperately looking for an income in order to continue your usage, or was it just a case of I'm skin, I can't use? Well, that's what it is, no problem.
I did want to try and get money together, but when I came off, I got fat, and at the time, my lift didn't actually go down. I just kept the same level of strength, and I was bigger still, and so the bullying had stopped, and I wasn't that desperate to get back on, if you like.
So
I was actually quite
the
come to like
motivation,
it.
because you didn't lose strength and there was no return to bullying, there wasn't as much of a motivation to use.
No motivation at all.
What about the changes in condition?
When I started getting fat, that's when I wanted to go back on again.
So, what was the time period at this point? So, we've done 6 months, we've come off.
Yeah.
We're 15 stone. We're 5'9". We're pretty strong. We're pretty lean, and we're winning all the girls.
Yep, and I train.
Life is brilliant. Life is great. We've got a bit of gyno, which we're a bit embarrassed about, but as far as we're concerned at this stage, the gyno is not really an issue because the other benefits are outweighing that negative.
Yeah, at that age, by the time you've pulled the girl and you got your shirt off, you're in there anyway, so it didn't matter.
Right. Now, so we fast forward. You've got 2 years of non-usage.
Yeah.
Why do you go back?
I wanted to get stronger and bigger and be a freak. I thought, I'm fed up of being average. I want to be as big and as strong as it physically possible.
Have you, because obviously we haven't actually made this official, but you are actually a competitive powerlifter.
Yeah, I'm a competitive powerlifter now. One of the best in the country at the moment.
Now, at this point, so we're 2 years down the line, we're now fat 15 stone.
Yep.
Have we lost strength at this point?
2 years down the line, I got a job where I worked nights. I was 18 at the time. And I actually trained naturally quite hard at this time. And I went from 15 stone up to 19 stone naturally. And fat, but strong.
Right.
For a natural dude.
So
I trained naturally. At this point, I've done a year, hard training, eating loads, but I wasn't taking anything at all.
So you're
just protein supplements and.
You're progressing. So what's the motivation? So most people say, well, if you're progressing, why are you motivated to use steroids?
I wasn't happy with my strength and body weight. I was fat and I wasn't really strong enough to weigh 19 stone, if that makes sense.
No, yeah, I understand that.
Yes.
Were you comparing yourself to anybody at this point? Was there anyone you were looking at as, I need to be that strong for my body weight? I mean, is this where we're starting to look at powerlifting?
At this point, I was aware of what powerlifting was and what sort of numbers I needed to become the best of the country. And
so
when I look at the numbers,
now you've got a comparative.
Yeah, this is where I wanted at the time, like naturally. Well, when I say natural, I've been natural for 2 years at this point, and I weighed 125 kilograms, so just over 19 stone, and I had a 260 kilogram squat, a 165 kilogram bench, and a 265 kilogram deadlift. This is with no drugs at age 19.
So most people say that was pretty high standard and pretty respectful. I mean, that wouldn't be shy of someone in that position now. You wouldn't snub those lifts at all. They're quite impressive.
Big numbers, but I wanted more.
Okay, so we go back on.
Yeah, back on again.
Do you remember roughly what dosage you started at when you went back on?
Yeah, when I went back on, I started on injectable test for the first time. So the first time I injected, I was 19, and I used, it was 750 milligrams of test E a week and 50 milligrams of oxy per day.
Now, I want to go back a little bit. You finished your first cycle, your D-ball, which you've been running for 8 months.
Yep.
In this period of time now when you're off, can you recall any issues with depression, low mood, any anxiety-related issues, anything of that nature?
I recall having absolutely no sex drive for about 6 months after coming off.
Obviously, you were shut down and you didn't do a PCT, so...
I felt like a sack of shit. I got fat. My gyno got worse.
Which is, again, because you had elevated estrogen and no test, yeah?
I spent a lot of time, rather than going out with friends, socialising, I spent a lot of time in my room, just sat in my room on internet forums and reading about, rather than going out doing what kids should be doing, I'd sit at home and feel quite depressed, and I'd read articles about powerlifting and bodybuilding, and I kind of realised at that point that's what I wanted to be.
Now, the 6 months is over. You're now starting to see some natural test recovery. Are you still experiencing any depressive-like state or any anxiety issues?
From what I remember, I was obviously 12 years ago.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah.
I don't recall being that depressed during this time. My lift started progressing again, so I felt okay.
Depression is well, quite obviously down to the fact that you had no natural testosterone production and you were in a period of 6 months until you recovered to any extent that was noticeable. But we don't see any form of depression or anxiety based around the actual drug use from a point of view of a side effect. All we're seeing is the impact of not recovering.
Yeah, I think for the first 6 months off, I felt a bit shit, and then after that, gradually started to improve.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't recall any anxiety at this point in my life.
That's
to be honest
fine.
with you.
Okay, that's fine. I mean, if you don't know, just say you don't know. I'm not trying to put words in your mouth. I'm just trying to make sure that there's. We obviously have some pre-existing issues regarding depression and insecurities from your early years of being bullied.
Oh, I'll be honest with you. My life absolutely sucked before I started training. You know, I had a hard time with everything. I used to go on the bus to school, and I get like stuff thrown at me, and just get a hard time in life. You know.
Yeah. No. So
people experience the same thing, but the difference being for me is I noticed within a month of taking the D-bol, it stopped.
Yeah.
Maybe I felt more confident and then portrayed a different image and I was treated differently, or maybe I did put on 5 stone within a year. So
yeah, I mean, there's obviously going to be several factors at play here, and one of them is a size increase, and one of them is most definitely a confidence increase in yourself. And generally, there's something to be said for victims being victims because they act like victims.
That's what changed immediately when I started going to the gym. And I started taking D-bol immediately upon training. There wasn't any natural time first. I did both together. And I noticed good gains. And I think my whole mood changed. Yeah. You know, I was getting laid. I was getting attention. You know, and everything just came together within a few months for me.
No, that's fine. I mean, you're not alone in that. There's plenty of people dealt with insecurities, poor body image and such things with some supplementation with gear. And the improvement in their physical appearance and the improvement in their strength has improved their confidence. It was something that did that for me. I was never a particularly confident individual when I was younger. And when I went on cycle, because I got stronger, I got more confidence about being able to deal with situations because I felt strong, physically strong to be able to deal with situations. My own confidence gained. So, I can relate to that very, very well. So we're going back on his next cycle. We're on 50 mg of oxy a day and 750 mg of test. Do you recall how long that lasted? I mean, I know you didn't come off, but do you recall how long you stayed on that dose?
That cycle is still going on now. This is 10 years later.
Yeah, but obviously your doses have changed and your drug choices have changed.
Yeah, I stayed under a gram of test for I think about 6 months. And within that 6 months, I benched 200 kilos and deadlifted 300 kilos on that dose. So I went from having some all right numbers and being fat to being about 16 stone with abs after 6 months on again, and having really good lifts from a weighted age at the time.
Yeah, very good lifts. 5 plate.
So I've gone from a 19-year-old that was kind of fat to a 20-year-old with roughly an 800 kilo raw total, and in good shape as well.
I mean, a 200 kilo bench, 4.5 plate is respectable by anybody. There's no one can deny that that's a good bench. Now, so what happens? Why do you stay on? At any point, have you any education on steroid use at this point? Do you know what a PCT is at this point?
Yeah, I was between the age of 16 and 19. I read up everything about how to use, and I decided myself at this point that I'm going to be on steroids for life. Well, at this point, I didn't have misses or anything to worry about, or any or any thought of having kids or anything. So I thought, fuck it, I'm just going to on and blast and cruise. Yeah.
So do you cruise, and what do you cruise on?
Nowadays,
let's go back to the beginning now. We've got this.
Okay. Right.
We're bobbing around the gram of test.
Yeah.
How long before you drop down?
I dropped down to 500 milligrams of test and dropped the orals out.
Right, but you've said you've done research. You've looked into these drugs, so you know that 500 milligrams is not a cruise.
I know it was very, very high, but I was scared of losing strength and size and going back. And in my mind, I still thought I'd go back to what I was like before if I came off.
even though you know that that's not really potentially going to be the case, you have this fear, illogical fear that if you go below 500 mig, you're going to lose strength. And even though you know that all you need to do then at that point is up the dose to bring the strength back, you don't want to take that risk.
At the time, I struggled with seeing weights go backwards was obviously the worst thing for me, and I decided to call a large amount to keep as much strength as possible.
Did you
Yeah.
recognise at any point that even if your strength did go backwards, it would only be a case of just upping the dose again and the strength would come back on? If you've been there once, you can get there again.
I did, but I couldn't mentally deal that. At the time, I couldn't mentally deal with going backwards, even if it was for a few months. I just couldn't cope with that.
Do you feel that this fear of going backwards was purely performance based, or do you feel that there was a fear of returning to that skinny little kid that got bullied?
I'd say a bit of both.
Do you feel that actually your confidence is in a bottle?
Yeah, absolutely. It's in a vial. Yeah.
So
I think
if we remove the drugs from you, then you have no confidence.
In my mind, I would go back to being that person again. I don't know whether I would, but the fear of it is enough to keep me on.
So you fear that even if you don't physically, mentally, you're going to lose all your self-confidence.
I think now, I'm a 27 stone dude at the moment, and I think if I don't do a jab, even if I miss a jab for a week, I start feeling like I'm a little kid again.
Okay, so we're cruising now at 500 mig.
Yeah.
How long do we cruise for?
I think I managed maybe 4 weeks before I went back on again.
Well, you weren't off, so I think back on is a bit of a bad term.
I managed 4 weeks before going back to...
That probably speaks volumes about how you envisage what you're doing. I would suggest, and you may disagree, and so will maybe many others, that you almost justify where you are with your usage by lying, because you've termed at 500 milligrams as being off.
Oh yeah, I lie to myself all the time. I mean, I will tell people I'm off, and then I will say to people, by off, like for me now, a gram of test is what I class as off. You know?
Now, most people hearing this their jaws will have just hit the floor.
Oh yeah, of course. I know that.
So, I mean, we're all used to fake natties and all that sort of bullshit, and I suppose a long-term user, many people regard TRT as being off. And unfortunately, also many users regard 250 meg, 300 meg a week as TRT, which anyone with any brains knows that it's not. It's well in excess. But you're talking about a gram of test. So we've done 6 months at 750 in an oxy.
Yeah.
We've dropped down to a 500 meg cruise. We've lasted 4 weeks. We've gone back on. At what point do the doses start to come up?
When I went back on then, I believe I used a gram of Deca a week and a gram of test a week as well. Right. And Evol, I think.
Now, at this point, we're looking at what, a year, 18 months into this 10-year cycle that you're currently on.
This is roughly a year into it. So we're looking back to maybe 2010, I think.
Are we seeing any side effects?
It's just got worse.
But you know about drugs, so why aren't you doing anything to manage the estrogen?
I tried Norvadex once to reduce it, and I got injured. I had a minor pec tear on it, and I associated using an anti-estrogen at the time with feeling quite dry and brittle and my tendons potentially being weaker.
And is that something you still regard, that AIs or anti-estrogens of any nature are going to make you dry and weaker?
Yes, I still think after getting injured taking them, there's a few studies that show there may be some correlation as well. But in my mind, I still think if I use something like Almadex, I'll get injured again. So for the last 10 years, I haven't used a blocker either.
Now, for the people that are listening to this, I know you to some degree. you're not a stupid man. So many people are going to struggle to understand how a minor pec tear, due to potentially what you feel was the introduction of Novadex, would stop you from using any sort of estrogen management going forward, and would let you be completely accepting of gyno as a necessary side effect that you must deal with because of your fear of this potential injury.
I think at this point I had gyno anyway. So
it's like, fuck it doesn't make any difference.
Yeah, I kind of thought, I've got tits, fuck it, I may as well just do whatever. And when I finished competing in powerlifting, get them cut out.
So,
question, so I thought, I've got them anyway, just get on with it. You know what I mean?
You're not particularly cosmetically driven in your drive is power.
At this point I was
body appearance is quite probably secondary or even tertiary in your priorities, but primarily your body image was important. What changed?
I kind of noticed that as long as I was big, it didn't matter whether I was lean or not. Being big. So.
Did you suffer from a point that you couldn't see your condition, or were you aware of what you looked like physically at all times?
After, say, 6 months on a gram of decadent test, I was 20 stone, kind of fat, but huge. And I thought I was massive at the time, and I kind of liked just being big and being strong.
So you weren't under any illusions of how you appeared? There wasn't a denial of the fact that you may have been carrying poorer condition than you expect? You knew when you were gaining weight that you were gaining weight?
Yeah, I knew I was fat. I knew I was fat. I knew I had gyno. I was so happy with how much size I put on that I accepted it.
Right, okay, so it just became a necessary evil to fulfill the function that you wanted, which was more strength.
Yeah, at this point, I'd gone from wanting a good physique to just caring about being huge and being strong.
Right, so we're at 2 grams now.
Yeah.
Injectable. How long does this last?
I believe I stayed around the 2 gram mark for a couple of years.
So we're talking a 2-year blast.
Oh yeah, easily. 2, maybe 3 years at 2 grams, 3 grams some weeks.
Now we've got gyno.
Yeah.
Are we seeing any other side effects?
At this point, I was getting some bloat, facial bloat. So
we've got water retention.
But I had, at one point I was around 20 stone mark, and I had the top 4 abs and a face like a fat dude. So I was, decent shape body wise, but a pair of tits and facial bloat. So real bad estrogen side effects.
Are we getting any other side effects? Are we seeing any mental issues, any anxiety issues, anything like that coming through, or so far is it just the simple estrogen related sides?
If I missed a jab, I'd get paranoid that I was going to lose size and strength. But other than that,
so we at this point we're starting to get not just a mild sort of requirement for the drugs. We're starting to get quite a strong dependency at this point. So we're 4 years in here, and you're at a point now where if you miss a jab, you're getting paranoid. You've got anxiety issues relating to the fact that you've missed a jab.
Yeah, at this point it would go. I wouldn't be able to go on holiday for more than a week out of fear of not being able to shoot in tests.
So we're actually getting to the point now where it's starting to have an impact on your life as well, and not beyond the normal Tupperware meals and training fixation. You're actually telling me that you would restrict your holidays and work your holidays around your ability to jab.
Yeah, I would rule my. At this point, this was going back. We're talking maybe 2012 now. So I was, at this point, I was around the 20 stone mark, and my entire life was ruled by drugs. I get paid, I'd work on the door at this point, I'd get my wage packet. The first thing that I would buy when I got paid, before anything else, before food, before rent or anything, was gear.
Now, forgive me for saying this, but I could be having a conversation with a heroin addict at this point.
Oh, yeah, I'm not. It's an addiction.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll get on to where you are currently very shortly, but
it was an addiction 5 years ago. It was 5-6 years ago.
Your financial priority is to buy drugs.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%.
Do you have any motivation for criminal activity to supply yourself with drugs?
Yes, at this point I started to.
And what was that?
Selling it to provide for it.
Which is right. Now, people do sell these drugs for financial gain, and generally a lot of people fall into the supply of steroids because they're users in the first instance.
Yeah, and it's a way to fund your own use.
But you're saying to me that that motivation was a bit stronger.
Yeah, at this point it was strong enough to start supplying them as well.
So you start supplying them purely from a point of view of financing your usage, because your usage level is so great, you cannot afford to do it.
No, not without turning to that to fund it. No.
Any other type of criminal activity?
The only thing I've ever done is that. Nothing else.
So we're selling gear,
Yep.
and our motivation for selling gear is literally to be able to afford to buy our drugs because we can't afford to buy our drugs.
Yeah, and to buy enough food in order to continue to grow. Which at this point the food bill is getting high as well. And I need food and drugs at this point, otherwise I'll shrink.
So this is all fueled by a paranoia that if you don't feed both in drugs and food, and you're telling me at this point that drugs is still the number one priority? Or have we started to see food become of an equal measure?
You need them both together. In order to get massive, as you know, you need both together. You can't do one without the other.
What I'm asking is, at this point, which is the priority? Because previously drugs have been priority.
At this point, I would say that because of what I was doing, I had enough money to buy both, and it was never an issue. So I made sure I had drugs and food. There was never really a point where I had to pick, if that makes sense.
Do you think you would have picked food over drugs if you had to?
I think I would have dropped my dose of drugs and gone for more food at this point, yeah.
Right.
If I'm honest.
So well, that's fine. No, I mean that's good. It's better than where you were.
Yeah, I think at this point that as a powerlifter, even if I had to drop to a gram of test and just run that, I was able to gain strength on a gram of test as long as I was eating enough as well. So if I was eating 8,000 calories and taking a gram of test, I'd be getting stronger.
Now,
and if I was sensibly as well, then
at this point, how's strength looking?
2013. It's going back 4 years now, so I'm 4 years into, like 4 or 5 years into a blast. I bench pressed 245 kilograms, and at the time the British record was 250. I had several goes at 250, well at 251, and every time I took it in a comp I missed it.
Now,
my motivation at this point was simply to get the British record on the bench.
So we've gone 5 years at 2 to 3 grams continuously.
Yeah.
And we've gone from a 200 kilo bench to a 245 kilo bench.
Yeah. So obviously the gains are starting to slow down. The first 6 months I put on 40 kilograms on my bench. It took me another 4 years to put the same on again.
Okay. And do you feel that over this period of time your focus was drug orientated or training orientated or a mixture of the two? Do you feel you paid enough attention to your training in relation to your drug use, or do you feel that you were very drug focused and training was more of a secondary thing?
I would say equal attention to both at this point.
Okay.
I think my diet at this point was really bad. I was working a lot of night shifts to fund everything, and I was eating poorly as a result. I was eating shit. I was getting quite ill at this point. I had a lot of colds. My immune system was very poor.
So we're starting to see some real medical, physical effects now because your immune system.
Yeah. At this point, I was about 23 stone at this point. I was getting heavy. I was getting some signs of sleep apnea, coughing constantly, getting headaches as well at this point.
And just feeling up to this point, so at this point, we're 4 years ago. We haven't had a cruise now for a period of 4 years, have we?
Yeah, this is 4 years on a bare minimum of a gram test every week. Even if I was skint, I'd get a gram test somehow, and I'd take a gram test every week.
Right. Now was something as well. A gram of test somehow.
Yeah.
Can you
So
elaborate on that? I mean, you just said if I was skin, I was still going to get a gram of test somehow. So how did you get that gram of test?
borrow money off somebody, or I'd have somebody lend me a vial for a week or something like that, and just find a way to get some tests in my system.
So at this point, we're not doing too good, are we? I mean, we've got no savings, obviously, because you're having to borrow if you're short 1 week in order to. So the money's coming in and the money's going out.
Yep, straight away. We go. At this point, I'd be working 4 or 5 nights on the doors every week, so I'm working full time. I was making a large proportion of my money at this point, honestly, so from work. But it was going straight out on maybe £100 a week, £150 a week on food some weeks, £50 on drugs a week, some weeks. And yeah, the money would just literally go on training and, supplements and gear and food. And that would be it. I have. So I said again?
Have we accrued any debt at this point?
No debt at this point. Just,
so you're still covering your bills, you're still paying your overheads, everything else is good.
Yeah. I've always managed to pay. I've always been lucky. I've always managed to pay for everything else as well.
Right. So we're now cruising on a gram.
Yeah.
We've got the signs that our health isn't the best, but at any point have we been to a doctor's? At any point have we had any blood work done?
Not at this point, no. Nothing at all. I thought I've just got colds and, having a bit run down from overtraining, so I backed off a little bit, started training higher reps and more bodybuilding work, and gradually got healthier by, backing off a little bit in the gym.
We move forward from here.
Yeah.
So where do we go now?
At this point, we're looking now 2013.
Yes.
In early 2014, I had my first serious injury, which is, actually a turning point in my life. For me, I was training at the time to break the British log press record. Mm-hmm. It's at the time, it was 190 kilos. Mm-hmm. I was doing 180 kilos for reps in the gym. Mm-hmm. On the second rep with a 180 kilogram log, I slipped and I tore my ACL, my MCL, my LCL, and a cartilage in my knee, and ripped some of the bone off, so the bone was lodged in my kneecap. So I was basically fucked.
Pretty nasty injury, yeah. So what happens to the drug use at this point? Because obviously we've got limited training now, or have we?
Train. I was told by the doctor that I had to lose weight in order to have an operation. They wouldn't touch me until 18 stone, so I had to lose about 5 stone at this point.
So how do we go about that?
I changed the sort of drugs I'm using. I tried some growth. I use a low dose of test, 500 milligrams a week.
Oh, so we've gone down below a gram now.
Yeah, I've gone down. Yeah, when we got injured, I thought, fuck it, I'm going to get skinny anyway, so I may as well. I need to lose weight, so I may as well take the opportunity to control my drug use.
And how did you feel? I mean, at this point, how are you feeling about your drug use?
At this point,
are you recognising you've got a problem?
At this point, I literally, my life was turned upside down. I couldn't train. I could barely walk. So my whole career on the doors was done as well. I was head dormant at the time, and I couldn't work. So I had no income. I was on the sick for 6 months because I couldn't work. I couldn't train. I had very limited mobility because the bone was broken as well. And I just used to lie in my room all day and feel sorry for myself. So I was proper depressed.
So you're not training?
It took me 3 weeks to go back to the gym after my initial injury.
All right, so you're doing some upper body work then, obviously.
When I could go back to the gym after 3 weeks, I did some light upper body work, and that's what I managed to do for a few months. And I went on a massive crash diet as well. I didn't eat, basically.
So what currently... What currently is your thoughts regarding your drug use? I mean, you're still training. You're on 500 mg test a week. Are you using anything else at this point?
I used 100 milligrams of Anavar as well to help with the diet. I thought it may help lose some fat.
It has some fat burning properties. That's true.
And I thought if I had in that as well, it would help me lose a bit of weight, so I'd get the operation quicker. At this point, the only motivation was to lose as much weight as possible, so I could have surgery and get back to training. That's all I wanted. I didn't really care about losing size.
So this problem we've had up to this point, this motivation up to this point, which has been a fear of losing size,
it was now what I wanted to do.
It was now suddenly put to one side because you had a greater fear of not being able to achieve your goals in the strength.
Yeah, being able to not being able to go to the gym was, not being able to train properly was worse. It literally destroyed me. I would
So, all right, I've got a question for you then.
Go for it.
Your current drug use, which we're going to get onto as we move through this, could put a situation where you can never train again. You're aware of this. You're aware that there are potential big health risks with what you're currently doing to yourself.
Yeah, I'm aware of that.
So, you currently have a goal, which again we'll get onto a bit, but I believe it's 1,000 kilo total.
Yep, that's it. That's what I want to achieve in powerlifting.
Now, how does it sit with you if you achieve that goal, but by achieving that goal you can never train again?
It's not good enough. I want to be able to train past it and
get back. But you know that at the moment you are really playing Russian roulette with your health.
Oh, absolutely. I'm aware of it. Absolutely. I know that.
You have very little medical testing behind you. You have very little understanding of how your current health is. It's all done by feel.
Yeah.
And you're very, very driven towards this 1,000 kilo, and I respect the drive. I genuinely do. I respect the commitment to your goal. But what you're also potentially doing is going to realise your biggest fear. And your biggest fear, from what you've told me about the events of 4 years ago, is never being able to train again.
It was worse. That feeling of being in my room, unable to walk, having to walk on crutches, it was worse than, it was much worse than the feeling of missing a jab and getting a little bit weaker.
So what happens if you have a heart attack and training's off the cards?
Honestly, I'd probably kill myself. I wouldn't want to live.
But surely then,
I developed.
I'm not trying to be over dramatic here, but there is the real potential, in the same way as there was when I attempted over 400 pound. There was the potential that I could have killed myself doing that, and there is the potential. There is the potential that you can do irreparable damage to yourself, which could restrict or limit your ability to train for the rest of your days.
It's at the time when I couldn't train, that is the only time I had suicidal thoughts. In my life, I never had those thoughts when I was young.
So
even life was shit. It wasn't as shit as being stuck in my room, not able to get to the gym. That was the worst feeling.
So in certain ways, your journey has increased your fears in a way, because you're so now dependent on training and so now dependent on drug use that the removal of that is the worst thing that you could ever live through.
Yeah, the ability to if the ability to train is the most important thing. It's more important than the drugs. I need to go to the gym and also feel normal.
So why, if it's more important than the drugs, then why are you still using exceedingly high doses, and why are you still cruising on a gram?
Because I want to hit 1,000 kilo total and then stop and then cut.
But cut out. That's what I want to do. You have enough knowledge. It isn't necessary.
If I was thinking that to get it done as quick as possible, to get to those numbers as fast as possible, if I use a large amount of drugs and eat a large amount of food.
I'm not questioning the blast element, okay? That's not what I'm questioning here. I'm questioning the cruise element.
So when I cruise now on a gram of test and a gram of EQ sometimes, a gram of Deca.
So are we talking together? We're talking a 2-gram cruise?
I'll use either Deca or EQ when I'm cruising. I use one or the other. A gram of test, and normally a gram.
So we're talking. So you're cruising on 2 grams.
That's for me is a very very low dose. If I'm on 2 grams a week is I'm not on very much at the minute. I might be a bit weaker or whatever, or a bit not recovering as well.
On 2 grams.
Yeah, a blast is 5 or 6 grams.
Now you've got. Do you recognise that is your head?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I believe I could cruise with less and potentially keep my strength, but it's just doing it. I don't know why I can't do it. If I'm honest, I don't know why I can't just cruise on less.
So you understand that your current usage is creating massive health risks.
It's massively excessive. It's really caused. Sleep apnea as well. I've got that now and it's being treated. So I actually feel better than I have in years from having a CPAP mask.
So let's go prior to the CPAP mask. In honest,
mate,
how did you feel?
Fucking shit.
Because this is something I can relate to, and I don't know if other people can to the same degree. When I did UC2, for the whole existence of UC2, I felt like crap.
Yeah.
And the thing is, feeling like crap became normal. And so a good day was feeling like crap, and a bad day was feeling really, really shitty.
Yeah, I can relate to that.
And so, how long? So, are you at the point now where feeling like crap is the norm?
To be honest, after getting if we're going back before the CPAP, I felt like shit every day, yeah.
Now, even with the CPAP, you're going to have to think back.
The CPAP,
think back to that 16-year-old cycle when you were on 50 mg D-bol a day and you were King Dick.
Nowadays, by comparison, I feel like shit. I sweat walking up the stairs.
So basically, your good days now aren't because they're good days. Your good days are because the previous days were actually that bad that any improvement feels like a good day.
But it's kind of been masked because of the CPAP. Everything feels a lot better at the moment. I'm enjoying not feeling tired and everything else. It's kind of probably making me feel better than I should.
Well, no, not at all. I don't think it's okay. What my point is that you're saying now you feel good. I'm questioning how genuine that good feeling is. And I'm saying, are you sure you don't just feel good because you felt so bad before that actually you're still feeling shit now, but it's such an improvement on before it feels like it's good?
It's possible, but...
Well, let's go through some of the feelings you currently have.
Okay.
So, talk through your day. You get up in the morning, how do you feel when you wake up? Do you feel tired? Do you feel heavy? Do you feel sluggish? Do you feel fresh? What do you feel?
I wake up, I feel normally, depending on how I've trained the few days before, I normally wake up feeling refreshed. I don't feel tired upon waking up. Right. I get out of bed, no problem. The first thing I think about is I've got to eat. So I bounce out of bed and I get some food down my neck. Now, and I think if I don't eat, I'm going to lose this.
I've got to eat because I'm hungry, or is this I'm
never hungry in the morning.
So this is an impulsion that you have to eat. You've got to.
I think if I have to eat as soon as I wake up, I think, right, let's get some food quickly.
So let's say you wake up and you can't eat for 45 minutes.
I'll panic.
Are we talking, how severe is this panic? I mean, how does it manifest itself?
I'll do whatever necessary to get food. So regardless of what's happening, I'll make sure I eat. Okay. Let's just say if we wake up in the morning and I'm with the missus and she wants sex, I'd say no, I want to eat first. It's that bad. I'll literally say to her, no, I need to eat.
I was going to get to this, but seeing as you brought it up, I'm going to get to it anyway. How is the sex life? Take away the physical restrictions, because I know what that's like. I've been there. How is the desire?
The last couple of stone I put on, I must admit my sex drive was a little bit lower than it was, but it was very, very high from all the tests. So it's now, I kind of want it once a day rather than 4 times a day, which is actually more productive for my relationship. It's better to have it lower.
Yeah, well, I mean, to be honest, once a day is still a decent sex drive. I mean, if you were saying
Yeah,
you want it
I
once a
still want
fortnight,
it.
I would say, well, yeah, you've got a diminished sex drive. But once a day, I wouldn't really call a diminished sex drive, to be honest. I mean,
Is
most
compared
married
to what I was
most
before.
married men are going to sit there and go, fucking hell, I'll be happy with once a month.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, 4 times a day makes it difficult to hold down any sort of job.
When I was on large amount of test, up till quite recently, I'd won it 4, 5, 6 times a day,
So
and that was direct from test.
what's your current cycle?
What am I on at this current moment?
Yes.
Well, I've got a competition on Sunday, so I'm currently on 50 IUs of insulin per day.
As in, is that done in one hit, or is that spread throughout the day?
That's a slow-acting insulin that I just take in the morning. I find it better to use a slow one. I grow better off a slow one. And I don't get peaks, and I don't get hypos on it either. So it seems to be the safe option for me. I'm also on.
Have you done any blood glucose testing at all? Are you aware of how your insulin sensitivity is?
I've got a blood glucose monitor, and I check it regularly, and it's always within the normal range.
Now, I'm going to say something now. If you're taking 15 IU at 50, did you say?
Yeah, 50 IU of Lantus in the morning, yeah.
So if you're taking 50 IU of Lantus and your BG is in normal range, that means you're about as insulin sensitive as a fucking breeze block.
Yeah. I also eat probably 2,000 grams of carbs a day at the moment, leading up to a comp.
But you can see where I'm going with this.
Oh, absolutely. It's going to lead to diabetes one day. I don't doubt that.
You know, we have definitely got severe insulin insensitivity going on here.
Big time.
Okay, so we move on. Right, so you've got 50 IU of Slin. What else we got?
I'm on a gram of EQ a week.
Right. Any blood pressure monitoring?
I did have it done last 3 weeks ago with my appointment with the sleep clinic. It was 180 over 80. So the top one was high, but the bottom one was normal.
80 is not normal.
Sorry, say it again?
80 is not normal.
On the bottom, 80.
That's not normal.
It's slightly on the high side, isn't it?
It's high. That's not slightly, it's high.
I was actually quite happy with how low it was, given what I'm on at the minute.
Yeah, no, in retrospect of your current drug use, I would say that's not particularly high, but it's you can't class that as being normal.
No, I wouldn't say normal, but it's on the high. They say, don't they, if it's over 90, they start to worry, don't they? So they said it's not really not right about.
But it would still be of a concern, right? Okay, so we've got a gram of EQ. What's next?
2 grams of test. That's from 1250 of test 250, and the rest is test suspension pre-workout use.
Okay, so we've got 2 grams of test, and what else?
I'm on 350 milligrams of Trestolone a week, mint. It's used 1 mil per day leading up to a comp.
Okay.
And I'm also on methylated tren pre-workout with
M-tren?
Sorry, say again?
How much M-tren?
I'll use 3 mil pre-workout.
Which is a pretty hefty dose of M-tren. Are you aware that in studies, 20 milligrams of ment was equivalent to 250 milligrams of test?
Yeah, I know it's like low stronger, and the strength I've put on, even as somebody being on drugs for 10 years, I've noticed the strength gains from ment in the last 4 weeks. It's been rapid.
What else have we got going
on? So it is, and also 60 milligrams of D-bol a day as well.
Okay, so the only oral you've got running is D-bol.
Yeah, that's the only oral I'm taking at the minute, and I'll be using on the day of competition. I'll be using check drops as well.
Milberon, yeah. Now, you've had no blood tests.
No, nothing at all yet. I figured I may as well wait till after the comp, get the comp out of the way and then worry about it.
Can I ask you a question here then?
Yeah,
Have you deliberately avoided doing a blood test because you don't want to face what it may tell you?
I don't want to know about it before the comp.
Because if you did a blood test and it came back that your blood values were through the roof, your kidney was crawling out your arsehole, and your liver had fucking put a white flag up and surrendered.
Yeah.
Would you then? You're then going to have a serious issue, aren't you? Because then you're faced with severe, or what would be indications of severe health issues coming on here, which means you've got one choice and one choice only to lower the drugs, and you don't think you can do it.
I can, but I'm going to wait till the comp's out of the way first and then cruise.
You cruise on 2 grams.
I'm going to try for as long as possible after this comp. I'm going to try to run 500 tests and 500 DQ, which for me, I know it's still high, but for me, it's an improvement. So that's the plan anyway, to try and run that.
Now, if you achieve,
which is high,
if you achieve your total,
I'm not going for 1,000 on Saturday because I'm not using knee wraps. So I need to do knee wraps first.
For argument's sake, let's just say you did.
Okay.
Then what?
If I achieve 1,000, I will then take 200 milligrams a week of test and slowly reduce the amount of insulin I use and the amount of carbs I eat, and get used to running to running that amount of test. That's the plan.
But you've told me, you've already said you can't go below a 2 gram.
I'll try.
Now you've told me that when something happens when you try and reduce your levels, doesn't it?
I feel like shit.
Let's be a bit more elaborate then. Come on, give me some specifics, because you told me there was all sorts of issues going on in anxiety, paranoia attacks.
Yeah. When I've reduced my dose before, I get really irritable. Me and the missus start arguing. So my life at home's harder. I find it very difficult to get an erection on less than a gram of test. I've noticed that's kind of the cut-off point around a gram. So obviously that causes problems as well. My performance in the gym goes to utter shit as well, which makes me feel depressed. And then from all these things combined, I start getting anxiety. I start panicking about little things in life that wouldn't normally bother me start becoming big things. I'm just not a very nice person to be around. I'm actually a better person on drugs. As in,
no. Right. Let's if ever.
Say again.
I'm a better person on drugs was probably the most drug addict comment you've made through all that.
Oh no, of course. No, what I'm referring to is with my relationship. Even the missus has said to me that when you're on, you're a lot nicer person to be around than when you're not. Right.
So, smackheads tend to be nice people when they're on smack.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they're not thieving buggers when they're on smack because they have no desire to thieve. Heroin wraps you up in a blanket. It makes you forget about the world. That's what its attraction is. So, excuse me a minute. Right. Secondly, regarding your missus.
Yep.
What does she think about all this? Is she aware of the health risks involved in where you are with things?
She's actually worked in the hospital, so she's aware of everything. She understands what these drugs do. She understands the addiction part of it.
And how does she feel about this?
Shit. She's pretty much had enough of it, really.
So you're at a stage now where your relationship is on the rocks?
I think it's going to come to the point soon where it's the drugs or her, really.
And what's your answer then?
That's why I want to get my numbers done, get what I want to achieve, and get out of sport.
But there's always a but, isn't there? I mean, at the moment, all I'm hearing is when. What if you don't achieve the 1,000? What if you don't do it in these next comps that are coming up? Then what?
I genuinely believe that I'll stay on drugs if I don't hit it.
If you don't do it, you're going to kiss goodbye to your relationship and potentially your health in pursuit of that goal.
I think of what probably the way I'm headed at the moment. Yeah, I'm not proud of it, but I think that
No. It's this is non-judgmental, mate. Fuck me. You're talking to a guy that's done
it's.
some real crazy ass shit and has got fuck kidneys. So
Um,
there's no judgment here.
no,
I'm
I
just
know.
asking the
I'm just saying
questions that I know the people listening
people
to this are
listening,
going to ask.
for people listening, I've told her what I said to her is I promised her as soon as I hit 1,000, I will sort my drug addiction out. This is why I started speaking to you because I want help.
Yeah, I understand that.
And I said to her that
By the
I started.
way, both to yourself and people listening, this is an incredibly difficult thing to do.
I told my missus that I was sorry, gone.
To be so open and frank about the problems that he's facing takes a brave man. There is still large elements of denial, but there is the start of acceptance, which is the first thing with anything like this is that acceptance that you have a problem. Now, granted, this is an extreme example of steroid addiction, and it is steroid addiction. There's no denying that, and I think you've said that yourself.
I'm 100% addicted to steroids. 100%.
But I had a conversation with someone online yesterday that was complaining about tren side effects, and they said, how do they get rid of them? I said, don't take tren. Well, there must be another drug I can take. Now, that's addiction that's in denial. That's someone that's trying to find an excuse because they don't want to give up their tren use. That is a lot more common than people realise. And if you look when you go online, and if you look at the conversations people are having online, never does anyone suggest or offer that they would stop using a drug because they can't cope with the side effects. 90% of the time, they look for another drug to cancel those side effects. That was just a little bit that I wanted to stick in while we were around where we were. But, for what's being said today, this is not difficult. This is not an easy thing to do. And I know that it's difficult, and I know that facing your fears, and I know you're full of good intention, but I think you know as well as I do that you are absolutely shitting yourself
about the thought of coming off.
About the thought of having to come off.
Oh, horrible. But I promised her that I would hit what I want in my sport, and that I will never ever abuse drugs again. I didn't say I wouldn't use them, but I told her the abuse will stop. And I'll get help. This is why I started talking to you about it, because I want help for when it's the right time to come off.
It's been the right time to come off 8 years ago.
yeah, I know.
I've been there. I've seen the all-consuming desire to achieve a goal, and I've stared down that barrel of taking that one step too far. I was lucky enough that I was sort of seeing where I was going anyway, and I was aware of when I was going, and I didn't want to go there. I'm not so sure the reality. I hear what you're saying, but I don't think you believe what you're saying.
Well, I promised her that I was gonna sort myself out after, so I've got to do it. That is, she is the most important thing in my life. She's now more important than drugs. I want to prove that to her. So whatever it takes.
Right. Well, let's be honest here. She obviously isn't, because you're not stopping the bloody drugs.
She has said that she'll go along with it to a point, and then it has to stop.
And has she accepted that point in a date?
There's not a date as such, but it was supposed to be when I hit 1,000 kilograms total, and then she said
that's a tomorrow never comes situation. You might not hit 1,000 kilo. I mean, I know what your lifts are. I know where you are with your training, and yes, I know you have a very, very realistic chance of hitting 1,000 kilo. But you might fluff the lift, the important one, the third lift. You might get an injury. You might get 1,000,001 things that prevent it happening on that day. But what you're saying is, I'll continue till I hit the 1,000. Really what you need to do is put in place a date and say, whether I hit the 1,000 or not, at this point, it stops.
Okay, I'll try that. I'll implement that.
Because otherwise, tomorrow never fucking comes.
I'm going to have to say that, aren't I? Like March being... I got an invite to compete in Australia by March. So maybe have that as my cut-off date. When if I don't achieve it,
I
then
would consider that you may not be physically capable of flying to Australia.
What, because of the length of the flight?
Yes.
And the sleep issue and everything?
Not just the sleep issue. I'm thinking more concerned about water retention issues.
I do struggle with flights in Denmark, actually.
I know, I've been there.
It's not very. It's not a very pleasant experience.
No, and the water retention can get that severe that I used to literally expand my waist by about 6-7 inches.
Oh really? I've not. It's not been that bad for me before, but it is pretty uncomfortable.
I used to get such a severe edema in my legs and my feet and my ankles and everything else.
Yeah.
The problem is, if you do get very severe cases of water retention, that can obviously lead to issues with breathing and God knows what else. So, I'm not so sure a trip to Australia. I'm hoping you hit this 1,000 kilos sooner than that, because I don't. My personal, from what you're asking me, from a way of support, I don't want you flying to Australia.
All right, that's fair.
But obviously, it's one step at a time. But I know you've got a comp prior to that is your real target for the 1,000, isn't it?
Yeah, there's the British, when I'm competing against Lauren Showley in the British, and I want to hit 1,000 and beat him potentially. That's the main.
Do you have any sort of? Do you feel any sort of guilt in any way over your usage?
I feel guilty that well, in a way, by being infertile from my drug use, I feel a little bit sorry for the missus that I've put it first. But this was years before I met her, so at the same time,
yeah,
she kind of met me when I was like that. But I do feel like it's my fault that we haven't got kids. Yeah, I do.
Do you feel any guilt from a competitive point of view?
No, none at all.
So you don't feel that the arguments say, Loz is using X amount, you're using X amount. You have no issue with any. I'm not. By the way, this is not something that I believe in myself, but I'm just putting that question to there because it's probably a question that would come up. If you're using 4 times as much as the man next to you,
I'm not going to speak to anybody else's drug use.
I'm not saying that. I'm just using it as an example.
Yeah, in an untested federation where drugs are allowed, you're allowed to, if it's your thing, you're allowed to go off to the toilet and do a line first and then lift. Yeah, so the tools are there. It's up to you whether you use them or not.
Because obviously, a lot of people will say, well, if so-and-so was on that many drugs, he would do the same. And if so-and-so on that many drugs, he would do the same.
In my opinion, the drugs are there to be used. If you don't want to use them for a comp, that's your choice. It's up to you. I mean, they're there to be used, and I take full advantage of everything that there is taken advantage of. I've used stimulants on the day. I'll abuse modafinil, ephedrine, caffeine, everything I can get my hands on, really. I don't do Class A personally, but some do, and it's their choice, I'm not going to complain if somebody beats me and they're doing a line in the toilets first. I'm not going to turn around and say, but they were doing coke.
When's the last time you competed?
My last comp was the Body Power Expo. I just did bench only.
When was the last time you used a strong stimulant pre-comp?
I used modafinil on the day of the comp.
Right. When was the last time you used an amphetamine-based stimulant like ephedrine?
I used DMAA a few weeks ago.
And how do you feel?
Yeah. Great. Really good, actually.
Right. I would be a little bit wary with the excess weight that you've gained of using any overly strong stimulants.
On comp day this time, I've got modafinil ready to use, which gives you focus. Yeah. No, I'm going to use drops, and I'm going to use caffeine. I'm not actually going to use DMA at this one. For that reason, actually, I'm quite worried about potentially my heart and everything. So.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. You're at the biggest weight you've ever been at now, body weight wise. You're at the biggest weight you've ever lifted, body weight wise. The stresses are going to be quite astronomical, and you don't really want to be putting unnecessary strain on the heart from a stimulant if you can avoid it. Yeah,
I'll stick to at this. I mean, at this comp, I've got modafinil there ready to use, which sounds good for focus.
Do decision to start using steroids?
No, not at all. Not in the slightest bit. I regret the abuse, but I don't regret the use.
Well, many would say 50 mg D-ball at 16 for 8 months is abuse.
Compared to what I've done since, it's like a cruise win.
That's like saying stabbing the guy isn't as bad as mowing him down with a machine gun. Come on.
It's still bad, but it's not. I don't regret going on. I just wish I was more sensible when I was younger, because the problems now stem from when I was younger. I'm like quite knowledgeable now on what I use now. I still cruise too high, but I think I don't regret using it. Not in the slight.
Do you feel that the existing motivations for going on are still there?
No, not at all.
So you don't feel insecure anymore? You don't feel a lack of confidence? Or do you feel that your confidence, because we did say earlier on that is your confidence in a bottle, and you said yes?
I've not come off recently, so I can't answer that question really, because I've never come off to see what I feel like. No. You know what I mean?
I mean, I take it you accept that you are drug dependent for the rest of your days. It would be a miracle of modern science if you could get your natural function to recover.
Yeah, no, it's not going to. Yeah, I'm aware of the fact that I won't always be on test, but I do want. I know it's a big ask, but I do want to have kids one day, so I need to sort it out.
Do you accept that there's a very strong chance that that's not going to be possible?
Yeah, and that's what is causing my relationship issues at the moment, and that's why I want to sort it.
There are alternatives like adoption and such like, but I would, in all honestly, would question your suitability for adoption. Why you still got such a high drug dependency?
Oh yeah, I agree with that. I wouldn't bring anybody into the world on when it's not fair to adopt somebody and potentially drop dead of a heart attack in a few years or whatever. So
do you also realise that your drug use is going to impact your child if you are able to have one?
Yeah, I've read about this as well. Apparently, it makes yes, big time. Big time. It's like, well, it's the same as smoking when you're pregnant, isn't it? It has lasting effects, and it's harming somebody else, which I want to get it sorted out and stop it before that point arises. You know?
Yeah. Now, I mean, we've just gone over an hour, and I think we've covered most things. I mean, it's fair to say you are addicted, you are dependent, and it's also fair to say that you suffer withdrawal.
Oh yeah, of course.
Both physical and it's not just a withdrawal of a fear aspect of I'm going to get small. You have physical symptoms as well.
Yeah, big time.
So recovery from this is going to be a very long process. Do you realise how hard it's actually going to be?
Yes, I do.
Do you understand how costly it's going to be if you don't succeed?
Yeah, absolutely. We've really spoke about like potentially buying IVF and stuff like that. It's getting really expensive.
I'm not on about that. I'm on about costing the fact that you won't have a missus anymore.
Oh, yeah, I'm aware of that as well. And I think if that was to happen, if I was to lose her because of it, I think I'd just take probably double or triple my dose and just go for it and kill myself probably. Really? If that was to happen, I'd have nothing to live for anymore other than training.
What about yourself?
I wouldn't care though. That's what she's all I care about, you know? She's the only thing.
Well, she is all you care about because you wouldn't be doing fucking drugs at the level you are if she was.
So, yeah, but other than training, she's the only other thing I've cared about in my life. And if I lose her, then there's nothing left, you know?
You know you've got my support. You know that these questions are the hard questions because they have to be hard.
I've tried, honestly, I've answered them 100% truthfully as well, all of them.
No, I respect that, I really do, and I know this has been difficult for you, and I know you're at very early stages with this, and you're still making a lot of excuses, and you're still in quite a bit of denial.
Of course, yeah. It takes time.
It's going to take time, and it's going to be a long process, and you know I'll be there for you as much as I can, and I really appreciate the fact that you've been so open about this, because I think this is gonna. I mean, a lot of people are going to be shocked by the dosages and everything else, but I think if people are honest, they can still see a little bit of themselves in this.
I'm hoping people can see it, and
Because,
maybe if they're up.
You knock the doses down to a gram, you knock the doses down to 500. There's still plenty of people cannot stop taking this drug. There's still plenty of people that have to cruise. Now, they might cruise at 250 a week, but they still have to do it. They'll make the excuses for this. They'll throw the TRT studies at you and say, well, it does this, it does that, which is just not relevant anyway, to be honest. Because TRT studies are based...
that to justify using 500 in a gram. I said, well, it's not really like that much, and it's less than a blast with, so that's why I've been through that phase before.
Yeah,
about a year ago, I was in that phase when...
The TRT studies are based on people that have low testosterone, so of course they're going to see health benefits from bringing their testosterone levels up to a better level. They're not based on drug abusers who blast and cruise. But, you are an extreme example, and you are at a very risky point within your relationship and within your life, and your health situation is, the honest truth is, we haven't got a fucking Scooby-Doo because you won't go for a blood test.
I will do it after.
Yes, I know you won't do it prior to the con because you're too scared of finding out what it's going to tell you.
I don't really want to say at this point. I think it would fuck my head at this point. It's 3 days out, and it's not. It's not ideal.
I would imagine that when you finish this comp and I speak to you about blood testing in a week's time, you'll turn around and say, I'll do it after the fucking British.
That's what I was. But I won't. I promise you I'll do it. Okay? I'm going to go doctor tomorrow morning.
You promised me you'd do it before this and you haven't done it. But...
I'll do it.
I have 16,500 followers, so you've just promised that in front of 16,500 people.
I will do it. I will do it this week.
Now, the other thing is, though, there should be a lot of people relate to this because, yes, you're an extreme example. Yes, your doses are high. Yes, your usage terms have been very long. But I know plenty of lads that haven't been off in 4, 5, 6 years. Now, they may have been on lower doses, but the fundamental roots underneath that drive to use are exactly the same. It's a fear. It's a fear of losing size. It's a fear of coming off. And that is a lot more typical than people realise. So if you strip away the numbers and deal with a bloke here that has a dependency on a chemical that was born about by insecurity and is now still very much the case because he doesn't feel he's going to be anybody if he doesn't have it in his system, is typical of hundreds and thousands of people that use steroids. And yet people jump down, they're not addictive. Really? Really? So if they're not addictive, then why can't you stop using?
I think that's how I was a couple of years ago. I would deny I'm addicted, and I would say that, but I keep my gains better when I cruise. I make excuses then. Now I'm admitting it, and I'm hoping people will realise the same by listening to me.
How do you feel now you've admitted it? Do you feel it has been in any way enlightening, or has it made it more scary for yourself? Or,
to be honest, I think I'm fucked, and I think the damage is done. But I'm hoping by saying this interview and being completely honest, I'm hoping it can prevent other people from having.
So that's the medical. That's the medical term. Fucked then.
No. Well, I fucked. I mean,
you know things are bad when the doctor turns around and goes, "You're fucked."
In terms of infertility, something like that, right? I would say to people, if you're listening, people that are in your early 20s, right, when you think that, you're not with anybody and you're not thinking about having kids, just imagine in a few years' time, you meet the most perfect, beautiful girl you can imagine, and all she wants from you is kids, and you can't have them because you've abused steroids. Just imagine how you're going to feel in that position. That's the one thing I would say to people listening. Is it really worth, potentially bench pressing 10 kilos more, 20 kilograms more, or gaining 2 stone of muscle for that? Ask yourself that question.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for you being so candid. And no, it's not been easy. And I know even in this conversation, you've had to look at a few things that you probably were quite uncomfortable. But I do really appreciate you doing this.